After my grandmother died, my cousin inherited her beachfront condo in Malibu. And me, I got a rundown bookstore in a forgotten corner of downtown Sacramento. People smirked. My husband didn't even try to hide it. He looked at me across the lawyer's office and called me the family's charity case. 2 nights later, he told me to take our kids and go sleep in that dusty old store. That night, surrounded by moldy books and broken shelves, I found something hidden behind the wall. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped it. Before I tell you what it was, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps this channel grow. Now, let me start from the beginning. My name is Hannah. I'm 31 years old, and I'm a mother of 2, a 7-year-old boy named Ethan and a 4-year-old girl named Lily. For the past 6 years, I worked as a part-time librarian at a community center while my husband Marcus built his real estate agency from the ground up. I handled the house, the kids, the bills, the dinners, the family drama, all of it. Marcus handled the commissions. That was our arrangement, or so I thought. My grandmother Ruth passed away on a Tuesday in October. She had raised me for most of my childhood after my mom got sick, and she was the only person in my family who ever truly saw me. My cousin Vanessa barely visited her in the last 5 years, but somehow she always managed to show up for birthdays and holidays with expensive wine and loud opinions. 2 weeks after the funeral, we gathered at the lawyer's office for the reading of Grandma Ruth's will. The conference room had gray carpet, a long oak table, and the kind of quiet that makes your own breathing feel too loud. Vanessa sat across from me in a cream-colored blazer, legs crossed, lips painted a bold red. Her husband Brett sat beside her, already smiling like he knew something the rest of us didn't. Marcus sat next to me. He was scrolling on his phone. He hadn't spoken to me in the car on the way over. He hadn't asked how I was doing since the funeral, not once. The lawyer, an older gentleman named Mr. Caldwell, cleared his throat and opened a thick folder. He adjusted his glasses, looked at all of us, and began reading. To my granddaughter Vanessa, I leave my Malibu beachfront condominium, fully paid off, along with the attached investment account valued at approximately $400,000. The room shifted. Vanessa inhaled sharply and covered her mouth with one manicured hand. Brett let out a low whistle. My Aunt Teresa smiled like she had won a prize too. Then Mr. Caldwell turned the page. To my granddaughter Hannah, I leave the bookstore property located on Harvey Street, Sacramento, commonly known as Ruth's Pages. Silence. Then a small, choked sound from across the table. Vanessa was laughing. She tried to cover it with a cough, but Brett grinned openly. My aunt looked at me with pity, the kind of pity reserved for sick animals. Marcus finally put down his phone. He stared at me. Not with sympathy, not even with surprise. With something colder. Disappointment. The bookstore had been closed for nearly 3 years. Grandma Ruth stopped running it after her first stroke. The last time I'd seen it, the windows were boarded up and the sign was hanging by one chain. After the meeting, Marcus walked out ahead of me. He didn't hold the door. He didn't wait. In the car, he gripped the steering wheel and didn't start the engine for almost a full minute. A bookstore, he finally said. A dead bookstore. It was Grandma's, I whispered. Your cousin got a condo worth $1.2 million. Plus cash. You got a building full of rotting paperbacks. I didn't answer. I couldn't. That weekend, Vanessa and Brett came over for dinner. It was supposed to be a family gathering, something to celebrate Grandma's memory. Instead, it turned into a celebration of their good fortune. Brett talked about renovating the kitchen in the Malibu condo. Vanessa mentioned she was already in talks with a property manager for short-term rentals. Halfway through the meal, Marcus raised his glass of red wine. Here's to Vanessa, he said, smiling, the only grandchild Ruth actually respected. Vanessa laughed, a high tinkling laugh like breaking glass. Brett raised his glass too. My aunt, who had come along uninvited, giggled nervously. I sat there holding my fork. Ethan was in the other room watching cartoons with Lily. They couldn't hear any of this. I didn't respond. I smiled the small, tight smile women learn to wear when they don't want to cry in public. I told myself it would pass. I told myself Marcus had a long week, that the wine was talking. After everyone left, I started loading the dishwasher. Marcus leaned against the kitchen counter with his arms crossed. He was watching me, but not in the way a husband watches his wife. In the way a businessman watches a bad investment. "Hannah," he said, "we need to talk." I closed the dishwasher. "Your cousin is building a real portfolio. Brett is already talking about adding a second property. And here you are, with a condemned building and a box of dead books. It's not condemned, it just needs work. It needs a wrecking ball." I turned to face him. "Grandma loved that store. She wouldn't have left it to me if it wasn't worth something." He laughed. It was a short, ugly sound. "She left it to you because she knew nobody else would take it. It's the consolation prize. You're the family's charity case." The words hit me like a slap. I felt my face go hot. My throat closed up. 10 years of marriage. 3 moves for his career. 2 kids I carried and raised mostly alone. And I was the charity case. But he wasn't done. "You know what? Maybe you should go live there. Take the kids, sleep in the store, see what your precious inheritance is really worth." I stared at him. I waited for him to laugh, to say he was joking, to take it back. He didn't. He picked up his phone and walked into the living room like he had just ordered a pizza. I stood in the kitchen for a long time. Then I went upstairs and woke up Ethan gently. "Sweetie, we're going to have a little adventure tonight, like camping, okay?" I packed 2 duffel bags. Clothes, toothbrushes, Lily's stuffed rabbit, Ethan's favorite book. I carried Lily down the stairs while she was still half asleep. Marcus didn't even look up from his phone when I walked past him with our children. "Have fun at the bookstore," he said. I didn't reply. The drive across the city took 45 minutes. The highway was nearly empty at that hour. Lily fell asleep almost immediately. Ethan kept looking out the window. "Mom," he said quietly, "are we leaving Dad?" I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. He was 7. He shouldn't have to ask questions like that. "Just for tonight, buddy. Try to rest." The bookstore sat on the corner of Harvey Street and 4th. The street light above it was flickering. The painted wooden sign that read Ruth's Pages was faded to a dull gray, the letters barely legible. I pulled out the set of keys the lawyer had given me and tried the front lock. It took 3 attempts before the door finally creaked open. The smell hit me first. Old paper, dust, something faintly sweet, like dried flowers pressed in a forgotten book. The front room was dim. Moonlight came through the cracked upper windows and landed on rows of shelves still packed with books. A single lamp sat on the counter, and miraculously, when I flipped the switch, it worked. I found an old leather couch in the back reading area. It was dusty but solid. I wiped it down with baby wipes from my diaper bag and laid both kids down on it with our coats over them. They curled up against each other and fell asleep within minutes. I sat on the wooden floor next to them and finally let myself cry. Quiet, shaking sobs I had been holding back for hours. I cried for my grandmother. I cried for my children. I cried because somewhere along the way, I had married a man who could watch me carry his sleeping daughter out of our home and feel nothing. Around 1 in the morning, I couldn't sleep anymore. I stood up and started walking through the store. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe I just needed to move. The building was bigger than I remembered. A main room with tall shelves, a reading nook in the back, a small office behind the counter, and a staircase leading to a storage loft. I turned on more lights as I went. The office had been Grandma's private space. Her desk was still there, covered in dust. Her reading glasses still sat on a notepad. A framed photo of me at 8 years old, holding a book almost as big as I was, sat on the windowsill. I picked it up and wiped the glass with my sleeve. That's when I noticed something odd. On the wall behind the desk, where I remembered there being a large watercolor painting of the California coast, the painting was gone. In its place was a section of wood paneling that looked newer than the rest of the wall. Cleaner. The edges were slightly off, as if the panel had been installed recently, within the last year or 2. Grandma had her stroke 3 years ago. She hadn't been to the store since. So who had replaced that wall? I ran my fingers along the edge. The panel wasn't perfectly flush. There was a tiny gap at the bottom. I knelt down and pressed. It shifted slightly. My heart started pounding. I pulled open the top desk drawer. Papers, pens, a checkbook. The second drawer, more papers. The third drawer had a small wooden box with no lock. I opened it. Inside were 2 keys on a faded blue ribbon and a folded piece of paper with my name written on it in Grandma's unmistakable handwriting. My hands were shaking. I didn't open the note yet. I took the larger key and tried it on the wooden panel. There was no visible lock, but when I pressed the key against a small discolored spot near the bottom corner, I heard a soft click. The panel swung open an inch. I pulled it the rest of the way. Behind the panel was a space about 3 feet deep, built into the wall. Inside sat a metal filing cabinet, a stack of old document boxes, and a leather satchel. My breath caught in my throat. I pulled out the satchel first and carried it to the desk. Inside were folders, dozens of them. Deeds, tax records, letters from the city, correspondence with several companies I had never heard of. And one name kept showing up over and over, a real estate development firm called Harbor Crest Investments. I opened one of the letters. It was dated just 18 months ago, after Grandma's second stroke, when she could no longer write or speak clearly. But these letters were signed by her. Then I noticed the signatures. They looked like hers at a glance, but something was off. The capital R in Ruth curved differently. The slant of the letters was wrong. Someone had been forging my grandmother's signature. I flipped through more documents, my pulse hammering. A series of offers from Harbor Crest to purchase the bookstore property, each one higher than the last. The final offer was for $2,400,000. The note at the top of the letter said the offer was urgent because the city had approved rezoning for a mixed-use development on Harvey Street, and the entire block was being bought up by a consortium of investors. My grandmother's bookstore sat on the most valuable corner of the block. I kept reading. At the bottom of the stack was a letter from Grandma's lawyer, dated 6 months before she died. It warned her that someone had been attempting to purchase the property by impersonating her. The lawyer recommended she install a hidden safe in the office and move all original documents there, away from anyone who might have access to the main desk. I sat down hard in the old wooden chair. Someone in my family had been trying to sell this building behind her back. I unfolded the note with my name on it. Grandma Ruth's handwriting, shakier than I remembered, but still hers. My sweet Hannah, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and the truth is finally yours. I know what they will say when the will is read. I know they will laugh. Let them laugh. I gave your cousin the condo because it will make her comfortable. I gave you the bookstore because it will make you free. There are people in our family who have been circling this property like vultures for years. They think I did not know. I knew everything. Trust your lawyer, Mr. Caldwell. He knows what to do. Do not tell anyone what you have found. Not your husband, not your aunt, not even your cousin. Especially not them. You were always the only one who loved me for who I was, not for what I owned. This is your second chance, my darling girl. Take it. Love, Grandma. I pressed the letter to my chest. Tears rolled down my face, but they were different tears now. Not grief, not humiliation. Something closer to fire. I opened the filing cabinet next. Inside were the original deed to the property, a bank statement showing a savings account in my name that Grandma had been quietly contributing to for 7 years with a balance of $86,000, and a list of phone numbers with names next to them. Lawyer. Appraiser. Harbor Crest contact. Police detective. Police detective. I put everything back inside the hidden space, locked the panel, and sat down at the desk. The sun was starting to come up. I could hear Ethan stirring on the couch. I had a lot to do. The next morning, I called Mr. Caldwell first. I told him everything I had found. He was quiet for a long moment, and then he said, "Hannah, your grandmother warned me this might happen. I need you to come to my office today. Bring the children. Do not go home. And do not tell your husband anything. By noon, Ethan and Lily were eating pancakes at a diner near the bookstore while I sat in Mr. Caldwell's office signing documents. He handed me a sealed folder Grandma had left with him. "She wanted you to have this only if you followed the clues and found the hidden safe yourself," he said. "She was testing you. She wanted to be sure you were ready." Inside the folder was a full report from a private investigator. My grandmother had hired him 2 years ago. The report named 3 people who had been attempting to forge documents related to the bookstore. The first was a man named Douglas Reyes, a real estate agent who worked with Harbor Crest. The second was my Aunt Teresa. The third name made my hands go cold. Marcus. My husband. According to the report, Marcus and my aunt had been meeting with Douglas Reyes for over a year. They had planned to have the bookstore declared abandoned, file paperwork with a forged signature, and split the proceeds from the sale. My aunt's cut was supposed to be $400,000. Marcus was supposed to get $600,000. I sat in Mr. Caldwell's office for a long time, holding that report, feeling something inside me harden into steel. "What do you want to do, Hannah?" Mr. Caldwell asked gently. I looked up at him. "I want to file for divorce today. And I want the police to see everything." Mr. Caldwell smiled. "Your grandmother said you would say that." By the end of that day, I had filed for divorce, placed my children in the temporary custody of my best friend Nicole, and handed over the investigator's report and all the forged documents to a detective named Rivera. He confirmed an open investigation had already been active for 6 months. They had just been waiting for the right moment. Marcus called me 17 times over the next 3 days. I didn't answer. On the 4th day, I agreed to meet him. At a coffee shop. In public. He walked in looking tired and unshaven. He slid into the booth across from me and gave me his most charming smile, the one he used to close real estate deals. "Hannah, baby, I'm sorry. I said things I didn't mean. The stress of the will, the money, it got to me. Come home. The kids need their father." I took a slow sip of my coffee. "How's Harbor Crest Investments treating you, Marcus?" The smile froze on his face. "What did you say?" "Douglas Reyes. My aunt. The forged signatures. The plan to have the bookstore declared abandoned. You remember any of that?" His face turned white. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "Hannah, I don't know what you're talking about." I reached into my bag and slid a photocopy of one of the forged letters across the table. "You signed this. Right there. On page 3. That's your handwriting on the check made out to Douglas Reyes. Detective Rivera has the originals." He went very still. "I've already filed for divorce," I said. "The bookstore is worth $2.5 million, Marcus. Harbor Crest wants to move forward with the sale, with the real owner, which is me. You will not see a single penny of it. My lawyer has already frozen our joint accounts. The house will be sold. Whatever's left after your legal bills, we split. Hannah, please. The kids and I are staying with Nicole. You will get supervised visitation, if you're lucky. After the criminal trial." I stood up. I left my untouched coffee on the table. As I walked out, I didn't look back. 6 weeks later, my aunt was arrested at her home. She cried on the news. Douglas Reyes took a plea deal and testified against Marcus. Marcus was charged with fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. His real estate license was suspended pending trial. His business partners dropped him. Vanessa called me one afternoon in tears. She had just learned what her mother had done. She wanted to come over. She wanted to help. She wanted to talk. I let her come. She sat on Nicole's couch and sobbed. She apologized for every cruel thing she had ever said about my life, my marriage, my choices. She asked if there was any way she could make it up to me. "Vanessa," I said, "you can start by being the cousin Grandma actually wanted you to be. Not because I need anything from you, but because she deserved that from both of us." She hugged me for a long time. 3 months after the will was read, I signed the sale agreement for the bookstore property with Harbor Crest. I didn't sell everything. I kept the bookstore itself. The developers agreed to preserve Ruth's Pages as an anchor tenant in the new mixed-use building. They would handle the renovation at their cost. I would own and operate the store. The money from the sale went into trusts for Ethan and Lily and into a modest investment account for me. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't worrying about money. But more importantly, for the first time in years, I wasn't worrying about Marcus. The divorce was finalized quickly. I got full custody. He got supervised visitation that he rarely used. His criminal trial ended with a guilty plea and 5 years in state prison. Today, almost 2 years later, Ruth's Pages is open again. The storefront is beautiful. Fresh paint, warm lighting, a children's reading corner where Lily loves to nap on weekends. The new building around us is full of apartments and small businesses. The whole neighborhood is thriving. I still have Grandma Ruth's letter. It sits framed on the wall of the office, behind the old desk where I work most afternoons. Whenever a customer asks me how the store came to be, I smile and tell them a little bit of the truth. My grandmother didn't leave me the smallest piece of her estate. She left me the strongest one. She left me the truth about the people around me. She left me a way out. And she left me a second chance at a life I chose for myself. The night my husband told me to take our children and sleep in that bookstore, he thought he was finally putting me in my place. He didn't realize he was sending me home.